This presentation gives you tips and strategies for goal setting. A common error that people make in setting goals is that they don't give definition to the goal that they want to achieve. That, or they don't know how to actually determine what that goal actually is. It might be too big, it might have too many parts, it might have a lot of confusing details, and there might not be a whole lot of commitment to that goal overall. When you think of the long range picture, like your dreams, then you can really work backwards and figure out the path that you need to take to reach that dream and that goal. When you work backwards, you're looking at the big picture and you start to determine all of the pieces and parts that come into play that make that goal a realization. Dreams are important because they are the big picture, the vision that we have for ourselves. They are the things that inspire us, and they allow us to see that we have an overall bigger purpose, even though it may not be defined. Goals, however, are very results oriented, and they basically are that real, put your hands on it kind of tangible outcome and help us create that roadmap to reaching our dream. But we need small daily kinds of stuff like actions and activities that will help us reach those goals. So, those everyday routines that we have and habits that we have will help us get to our goals, which eventually will help us reach our dreams. By dissecting the idea of dreams and goals, we can really see what needs to be done in each step of the process so that we really have a much better understanding of the everyday, mundane kind of tasks that sometimes we think are unpleasant or unnecessary, but by the same token, they are meaningful and required for us to reach our goals. So when we really put it in that perspective, we can really affect our motivation as well and examine why we do or don't like tasks and convince ourselves that even tasks that we might find distasteful might still be important for us to reach our goals and dreams. You can look at goals in the concept of short-term, intermediate, or long-term goals, which you might find in a lot of readings and videos about goal setting. But in this particular model here that I'm showing, the emphasis is really on breaking goals into manageable chunks and pieces and tasks. So when you're looking at a goal, it might have multiple sub goals. So they might be daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, whatever it might be. Each one of our own personal goals is unique to us, and we have a wide variety of complexity within those goals. So the definitions that you might see, a long-term goal is 10 years from now, a short-term goal is less than a year from now, might really not make a whole lot of sense. It could be as simple as you're trying to not snack on chocolate for a day so that you can lose weight or break your chocolate habit or whatever it might be. So those are kind of arbitrary deadlines. So your time frames really need to be specific to you and to your goal and the complexity of your goal. Two models of goal setting are pretty basic, straightforward, and similar, and I think really illustrate how to break your goals into pieces and parts that you can examine and understand and achieve. One of them is the DAPS model, and it's the first letter of each of these steps. When it's dated, it has some kind of time frame and deadline. When it's achievable, it's meaningful enough that it's got a little bit of a stretch for you, but not so challenging that you get frustrated. It's not so easy, however, that you really don't care and get bored. It's personal, so it has meaning and relevance to you. It's positive versus a negative spin. And in this particular model, what they mean by that is that you're not looking at eliminating something, you're trying to grow something. So, for example, you're not trying to quit smoking cigarettes, you're trying to develop better, healthier lifestyle habits. And finally, you want your goal to be specific so that it not only has specific details of the outcomes, but also it's measurable and that you're able to determine your progress and track it. The other model is SMART goals. And you'll see that it's very similar, having a lot of the same component parts. But in the DAPS model, when they talked about being specific, the SMART model breaks specific and measurable up into two different components because there's a strong emphasis on measuring and tracking progress. You'll also see the similar attainable and relevant and timely elements here as there was in the DAPS model as well. The S here, specific in both models. The A was achievable in the DAPS model, attainable here. The P here is personal in DAPS, relevant in the SMART model. And D is dated in DAPS, where here it's timely. So again, there's numbers of models out there that you can use, but I think these two really captured the essence of strong decision-making processes. You'll notice that in the SMART model, there isn't that element of being positive. It is an important element, and that's why both models are shared, so that you can see all of the elements that you want to consider when building your goal model. When you're looking at deadlines, the most important thing to remember is that they need to be realistic and they need to be specific. So when you set a deadline for a goal, you not only want it to be detailed, where it has a date, an actual month, a day, a year, but also that it is a reasonable time frame for the complexity of the goal. You also, again, when you're talking about the idea of it being achievable, you want to set a good bar for yourself. You want to reach for something because that's what keeps you motivated. If it's too simple or too hard, you're either going to get frustrated or bored, and you're not going to want to move forward. You want to work for your own goals. When you're working on somebody else's goals for you, it sometimes is difficult, again, to maintain that motivation. So you may want to make someone proud, or you might want to make someone happy, but ultimately, that may not give you very much satisfaction in reaching that goal. So to make it personally relevant and meaningful, you have to own it and see that value in it. It's very easy when we get frustrated and have a failure that we just throw our hands up and give up. So you need to take action, you need to get started and at least do something towards that goal, even if it's a small step, and even if you're starting over after not necessarily achieving it after trying it once, keep trying and working towards that goal. Those little details that make it specific are really going to help you get to that big picture. So when you're working on those daily goals, weekly goals, monthly goals, make sure that each one of them is leading you on your path to your longer range, bigger goal. So how do you reach those goals? You need to make that commitment and either use a visualization board, a journal, write it down, something that's going to hold you accountable. That helps you then create that game plan. You need to be assertive and ask for support and help. Those short-term and intermediate related goals will help you break it into pieces and parts. And you need to have a good reward system. You need to think about those intrinsic and extrinsic rewards and which ones are really going to keep you motivated to reach the end and persist. That commitment is paramount, because unfortunately what happens is we think we're shooting for a goal, but really what we're doing is we're just really trying for something, but we're really not committed to it. When you're committed, you own it and you recognize that it takes time and effort and sacrifice, and that you have to also accept the consequences, whether they're good or bad. To reach your goal, you really need to think of all of these pieces and parts of the process that we've discussed. And you need to recognize again that nothing is going to happen if you don't put the effort into it and you aren't willing to make that stretch and put the time and the commitment into it. In the bigger picture, you want to not only have that goal, but realize that you will face obstacles. That's a reality of life, but you need to stay positive about it. And you need to fight that inner defender and inner critic and look at those obstacles as challenges, those failures as learning opportunities, and keep yourself on track and show the world that you can do it and celebrate those successes. You need to realize that failure is a good thing and that it isn't the end all be all. It's actually an opportunity for testing out your theories about how you're going to reach your goal, and it's only going to make you stronger as you move forward towards your goal. This inspirational speaker, I think, really nailed it. When you do hit those obstacles, you don't just give up on the goal, you just change your direction. You have to shift your time frames, you have to be flexible and adaptable with the level of your goal or the time frame of your goal, and you always have to keep visualizing that goal in the end, because when you can see yourself in that position, in that role, having accomplished that goal, your motivation stays strong. Finally, you need to maintain affirmations throughout your whole goal setting process. You have to remind yourself that inner guide has to help you fight off those inner defenders and the inner critics and the outward critics, where you're getting feedback from the outside world that are telling you you can't do it. So you have to be your own best cheerleader to reach those goals. So always remind yourself of your value and your worth and your abilities and your talents, and remind yourself that your goals are important to you, meaningful to you, and worth all the time and effort that you put into them.